On the night of October 9th, the odometer on Rene Voskuilen's truck logged 142 miles, despite his phone remaining stationary at the family home in Harlow's Bend the entire evening. His brother noticed this only later. At the time, it seemed like nothing. Ellison Voskuilen had not been back to Harlow's Bend in 9 years. The town smelled the way it always had, wet clay from the river flats and diesel from the grain elevator, and the diner off Kessel Street still served the burnt coffee he remembered. He came because their father, Aldous, had collapsed in the driveway at 68, and someone needed to sort insurance forms and prescription refills. Rene had already handled most of it. Rene handled everything. The first crack was small. During dinner, Ellison mentioned a woman who had gone missing from a rest stop off the county highway years earlier, a story he half remembered from a newscast. Rene corrected a detail without looking up from his plate. He said her left shoe was found 40 feet from the car, not the right, and that the buckle had been undone. Ellison asked how he knew that. Rene said he must have read it somewhere. That detail had never been printed anywhere. Ellison checked. He started keeping a list, at first only to reassure himself. There had been 6 disappearances in the region over 11 years, spread thin enough that no agency had connected them. A hitchhiker, a night shift nurse, a man who left a bar in Delmore County and never reached his apartment 2 blocks away. Ellison pulled what he could from public archives, old newspaper scans, a message board where amateur researchers argued about timelines. Rene appeared nowhere in any of it. That was the point that unsettled him. Rene appeared nowhere, and yet he found a receipt in the truck's glove box, a gas station in Very Falls, dated to the same weekend the nurse vanished, 90 miles from any reason Rene would have to be there. He found a parking citation, contested and dismissed, issued half a mile from the bar in Delmore County. Individually, each was explainable. Rene delivered agricultural parts for a supplier 3 counties wide. He drove constantly. His job placed him everywhere. That was the alibi. And it was a good one because it was true. The shed behind the house stayed locked. Rene said it held their father's tools. Later, he said the roof was unsafe. Later still, he said he'd lost the key and would get a new one cut. Though the padlock, a brass Corbin Hallstrom rated for outdoor use, looked new and oiled. Ellison measured it once with his eyes. The shackle was thick enough to stop bolt cutters. Every few weeks, Rene left overnight. He returned near dawn, exhausted, his forearms scratched in thin parallel lines, his jacket torn at the seam. He said he'd been helping a friend clear brush. Ellison did not have the name of the friend. He began photographing things, the odometer, the receipts. He built a folder on a drive he kept in his coat. He noted that on the night the hitchhiker disappeared, a traffic camera at the Harlow's Bend interchange captured a grey truck at 11:41, and that Rene's truck was grey, and that this proved nothing because half the county drove grey trucks. He wrote that down too. He wanted to be wrong. He kept assembling the reasons he might be. The turn came on a Tuesday. Ellison opened his own folder to add a photograph and found a document inside that he had not created. It was a list, typed, methodical. It contained the dates he had accessed the public archives. It contained the mileage he had driven around town, matched against his own phone's location history. It noted which nights he had stayed awake past 2. At the bottom was a single line unpunctuated. Ask him what he thinks he found before he leaves. Rene had been reading his research the entire time. Rene had been keeping a folder of his own, on his brother, measuring not what Ellison knew but how close he was getting, and the list was not finished, which meant the decision was not finished. Ellison left Harlow's Bend that same night. He did not pack. He drove until the fuel light came on, and then drove further. He did not say goodbye to their father, who remained in the county care facility, unable to speak. Some portions of what followed are reconstructed from partial records. Ellison spoke to a regional field office once and provided the drive. The case numbers assigned to the 6 disappearances remain open, unmerged, filed separately across 3 jurisdictions that do not share databases. Rene Voskuilen still lives in Harlow's Bend. He still delivers parts. Neighbours describe him as reliable and quiet, the kind of man who shovels your walk without being asked. The shed was never searched. No warrant met the threshold. Ellison changed his number and moved twice. He does not give interviews. He answered one question in writing about whether he believed his brother knew he had gotten away. His reply was 3 words: he hasn't decided.